The vast chamber of the Galactic Council hovered in orbit around the ancient dying star of Kilrath Prime. Hundreds of representatives, their faces a kaleidoscope of alien features, scales, fur, tentacles, and iridescent skin, watched the central hologram flicker to life. At its core, a shimmering image of Earth spun slowly in the void. The Council's high speaker, a towering creature of translucent crystal called Vrental, raised an elongated limb. Earth, your rapid technological ascent threatens the balance of the galaxy. You have been warned through emissaries and subtle sanctions. Now the Galactic Council issues its final decree. Surrender your sovereignty, your weapons, and your ambitions, or face total annihilation. Across the galaxy, millions of eyes were trained on this moment. But back on Earth, the news arrived as a shockwave rather than a whisper. President Arya Dean, standing in the United Earth Council chamber beneath the rebuilt dome of New Geneva, felt the weight of 1,000 futures pressing down. She did not flinch. "Tell them," Arya said, voice steady, "that Earth is not theirs to command. Humanity will not bow to fear or tyranny." Her words rippled across the globe, carried by satellite, by neural net, by every network humanity possessed. Defiance was contagious. Behind her, Earth's greatest minds, military strategists, scientists, and AI architects worked feverishly. The Exodus fleets, Earth's secret armada of advanced warships activated from their hidden orbits and deep space stations. Cloaked in stealth fields and armed with experimental quantum weapons, they were humanity's ultimate gamble. But the Council did not expect a fight. When the first fleet emerged near Mars, shimmering like ghostly phantoms against the red planet's dust storms, the Galactic Council convened again, this time in panic. Far above the blue marble, Commander Leah Santos gripped the controls of the flagship Resolute. Her crew, a mix of cybernetically enhanced humans and AI co-pilots, watched the approaching Council fleet on their displays. The alien armada was massive, 500 ships, each a city in itself, bristling with weaponry. "Status?" Leah asked. Eyes sharp, quantum shields at 80%, energy weapons charged. "Waiting on your command." She exhaled slowly. "Engage evasive maneuvers. Initiate pulse interference." The alien warships opened fire. Pulses of plasma tore through the vacuum, but the Resolute and its sister ships danced between the beams like spirits. Leah's voice rang clear, steady, but fierce. "Return fire. Target the flagship." The Resolute's cannons unleashed a storm of particle bursts. Against the Council's unprepared fleet, the humans fought like cornered wolves, reckless, fierce, unstoppable. In minutes, the flagship Zorlax Imperium exploded in a silent supernova of fire and debris. Back on Earth, news feeds exploded with the battle's images. A surge of pride swept the planet. Social media lit up with slogans, "We fight, we burn." No peace with tyrants. Even in the darkest corners of Earth, defiance thrummed. But war is never clean. The Council retaliated swiftly. Orbital cities, human strongholds in Earth's exosphere, were struck. The first wave of missiles tore through the thin atmosphere, bringing destruction and loss. Earth civilians huddled in shelters, hearts pounding. Yet even amid the fire, resolve hardened. That night, Arya stood on the balcony of the United Earth Council chamber, gazing up at the stars. Her mind was a storm of strategy and hope. Her chief advisor, Dr. Emil Shan, joined her quietly. "The Council underestimates us, but they'll adapt." Arya nodded. "They don't understand what it means to be human. We fight not because we want to die, but because we refuse to live as slaves." A cryptic message suddenly blinked on her comm device, a deep space transmission from beyond the outer rim. "Earth, you are not alone. Allies wait in the shadows, but beware, the cost is steep." Arya's jaw clenched. "Prepare the fleet. We're about to show the galaxy why humanity is not to be trifled with." As the camera pulls away from Earth, the glowing blue sphere, bathed in the cold fire of conflict, orbits silently. The war has begun. The Galactic Council declared war on humanity, and humanity is ready to burn them all. Commander Leah Santos gripped the edge of the Resolute's command console, her knuckles white, eyes locked on the swirling battlefield displays. The void around Jupiter crackled with the violent dance of war. The Galactic Council's cleansing fleet, once proud and unstoppable, was now splintering under Earth's unorthodox assault. Shields holding at 75%. Enemy flagship Zorlax is critically damaged, shields at 12% and falling, her tactical officer reported, voice tight with tension. Leah didn't relax. Focus all fire on their command bridge. We end this now. Below deck, the cybernetic infantry, soldiers augmented with the latest nanotech and AI neural interfaces, prepared to board the crippled flagship. Lieutenant Rourke checked his squad's weapons, pulse rifles calibrated, grav bombs ready. Their mission was simple but perilous: seize the Council's war machine from within and cut off its head. The Resolute and its sister ships weaved through plasma blasts and energy nets, exploiting a newly discovered weakness in Council fleet formation. Earth's AI co-pilots predicted enemy movements with uncanny precision, allowing human pilots to strike where least expected. Alien commanders, trained in millennia of warfare, found themselves outmatched by what they called unpredictable chaos. Suddenly, Leah's comm crackled. Lieutenant Rourke, boarding parties ready. Roger that, Commander, moving in. The Resolute's airlocks hissed open, releasing squads in 0G, tethered and deadly. Boarding pods slammed into the hull of the Zorlax Imperium, melting its armor with plasma cutters. Inside, the ship was a twisted maze of alien architecture, cold, sterile corridors illuminated by eerie bioluminescent panels. The cybernetic infantry moved with surgical precision, disabling power nodes, hacking into control centers. At the same moment, back on Earth, President Arya Dean watched the battle unfold from the war room deep beneath New Geneva. Screens displayed, live feeds from orbit and cybernetic operatives embedded in the field. The air was thick with tension, but Arya's gaze burned with resolve. We don't just survive, she told her generals. We hunt. This is our fight for survival, and our declaration that we will never kneel. An intelligence officer interrupted, voice urgent. Madam President, intercepted Council transmissions indicate reinforcements en route. Larger fleets, more advanced weapons. Arya's jaw tightened. Then we end this war quickly. Leah, relay new orders. Push hard. Break their spirit. Back at the battlefront, Lieutenant Rourke's squad stormed the bridge of the Zorlax Imperium. Alien officers snarled in fury, but human firepower was relentless. The command console was seized. Rourke keyed in a series of commands overriding the ship's systems. Commander, we've taken control of their flagship. Initiating self-destruct sequence. Copy that, Lieutenant. Withdraw immediately. The Resolute and the boarding. Pods pulled away just as the Zorlax Imperium exploded in a silent, massive fireball against the backdrop of Jupiter's swirling storms. The shockwave rippled through the remaining Council fleet. The unexpected annihilation of their flagship shattered the Council's morale. Alien fleets faltered, disarrayed by the loss. For the first time, the galaxy's mightiest war machine tasted defeat and fear. But Earth paid a price. The Council's counterattack struck orbital cities, transforming shining metropolises into blazing ruins. Thousands of civilians perished. Humanity's heart ached, but its spirit was unbroken. In the aftermath, the war room buzzed with activity. Arya turned to her advisors. We've shown strength, but this is only the beginning. The Council won't relent. Dr. Emil Chan, her chief scientist, nodded grimly. They'll adapt. We need more than weapons. We need to fight their minds, their will. Arya considered. Then that's what we'll do. Meanwhile, far from the front lines, in the shadowy depths of the galaxy, a figure watched the news feed of the Zorlax Imperium's destruction. Skivtor, a high-ranking general of the insectoid Scarthak species, felt a spark of something new. Admiration mingled with dread. Humans, they fight with a fury we have not seen, he muttered to his aide. This war will change everything. As Earth's defenses hardened and new plans took shape. A silent, cryptic transmission arrived at the United Earth Council. The message was brief. Allies wait in the darkness. Trust no one. Prepare for the true war. President Arya stared at the flickering symbols, knowing the coming battle would test humanity in ways no one could yet imagine. The war had begun in fire and blood, but humanity was no longer just defending itself. They were becoming hunters in a galaxy that had underestimated them. The battlefield had shifted, no longer just starships exchanging fire across the void. The war now raged within the unseen realm of data and thought. Humanity's cyber warriors unleashed a new weapon, mimetic viruses designed to infiltrate and disrupt alien neural networks and artificial intelligences. The Council's fleets, once confident in their technological superiority, found their systems betraying them from within. Deep in the heart of the Solar Dominion's Cyber Command Center, Lieutenant Commander Alina Cade tapped furiously at her console. Lines of code streamed past her eyes, representing hostile AI commands corrupted and inverted. With a final keystroke, a mimetic payload detonated across a cluster of enemy warships, turning their own tactical arrays against them. Enemy vessels are targeting each other, Alina reported, voice tight with satisfaction. We've turned their AI to chaos. Across the battlefield, the consequences were devastating. Council fleets shattered as their ships opened fire on allies, communications jammed and sensors malfunctioned. Alien commanders screamed in rage, unable to regain control. Among the chaos, one figure observed with cautious interest, Skiv Tor, the insectoid general who had defected to humanity after witnessing their brutal efficiency and unorthodox tactics. In a dimly lit war room aboard the human flagship Resolute, Skiv Tor's many eyes darted nervously as he spoke to Commander Leah. Santos, your people fight not only with guns but with the mind. This is unfamiliar. Leah smiled, a trace of pride in her voice. The galaxy underestimates human adaptability. We've always been survivors. Meanwhile, far from the front lines, human scientists worked feverishly to decrypt the Council's vast databanks. New intelligence Skiv Tor had brought with him. It was here that Dr. Emil Shan made a chilling discovery. We've found a weapon, Emil announced to President Arya Dane in a secure briefing room. An ancient superweapon buried deep within the Council's systems, capable of destroying entire solar systems with a single strike. Arya's face hardened. How soon could they deploy it? Emil shook his head. It's already active. We don't know what's holding it back. The revelation sent shockwaves through Earth's leadership. The Council was not only fighting a war of fleets and firepower, they held a doomsday device that could obliterate everything humanity fought to protect. In response, Arya ordered a shift in tactics. We can't just survive anymore. We have to break them. The Solar Dominion's new mission was clear. Sabotage the Council's unity by exploiting fractures within their ranks. Propaganda broadcasts disguised as news reports circulated among alien populations, sowing distrust and rebellion. Human agents infiltrated occupied worlds, igniting sparks of insurgency. One such planet, Veraxis Prime, had been a proud council world for centuries. Now, thanks to human influence and Skiv Tor's covert advice, the native Veraxians were on the brink of revolt. Aboard Veraxis Prime, Skiv Tor met secretly with rebel leaders in the ruins of an ancient temple. The Council fears what they do not understand, he told them. They fear your spirit. Join us, and together we will tear down their empire. The rebels, inspired by humanity's defiance and their own desire for freedom, pledged their allegiance to the Solar Dominion. But the Council would not go quietly. In the shadows of their war chambers, High Speaker Vrental convened a secret conclave. We are fracturing, he admitted, voice trembling with rare doubt. This is not the war we prepared for. A younger delegate hissed back. We must use the superweapon. End this quickly before we lose everything. Vrental's gaze darkened. That weapon will destroy us all. But if we do not act, humanity will burn us to ash. Back on Earth, President Dean pondered the mounting threat. If the Council deploys that weapon, billions will die. We must find it first. Her generals nodded grimly. We have operatives searching every system. But the weapon is hidden behind layers of ancient security. Alina Cade looked up from her console. We can try to turn the weapon against them. If we hack into their core systems, we might be able to neutralize or even control it. Arya met her eyes. Then that's what we'll do. The mind is humanity's greatest weapon. The war had become a game of shadows and secrets, where the battle was fought in the silence of data streams and the flicker of digital ghosts. Humanity's adaptability and ingenuity had turned the tide. But the true test was only beginning, because somewhere deep in the Council's heart lay a weapon of unimaginable destruction, and the race to stop it was on. As the Resolute sped through the dark, Leah Santos prepared her crew for what was coming next. The war was no longer just fire and blood. It was the war for the very soul of the galaxy. The cold stars blinked silently over Varaxis Prime, a world once a jewel of the Galactic Council, now smoldering with rebellion. Fires burned in the ruined cities as Varaxian insurgents, armed with Earth-supplied weapons and guided by human advisors, struck at the heart of Council control. Skiv Tor stood atop a shattered monument in the capital, his many eyes scanning the horizon. Beside him, Lieutenant Commander Mira Patel, Earth's chief liaison to the insurgents, checked her datapad. The Council forces are scrambling to respond. Their reinforcements will arrive in days. Skiv Tor's mandibles clicked softly, gesture of unease. They are desperate. When cornered, the Council becomes ruthless. Back on Earth, President Arya Dean watched the uprising unfold with a mix of pride and caution. The Solar Dominion's strategy had shifted from pure military might to guerrilla war and ideological conquest. Every planet we free is a torch we light against the darkness of the Council, she declared to the United Earth Council. But we must be careful. Liberation is not occupation. Her words echoed a truth hard-won by generations of human history. The line between liberator and conqueror was razor-thin. In the midst of the chaos, covert human operatives executed surgical strikes against Council infrastructure. Communications hubs, supply depots, and energy plants were sabotaged with precision. On the ground, insurgents adapted Earth's guerrilla tactics, ambushes, hit-and-run attacks, and exploiting the Council's rigid hierarchies. The Council's soldiers trained for conventional warfare were unprepared for a war where enemies could vanish like ghosts. The Council's response was brutal. They deployed firebombs, leveling entire cities suspected of harboring rebels. Planet-wide curfews became daily nightmares. The once proud Varaxians, forced into hiding, faced starvation and fear. Skiv Tor, once a loyal servant of the Council, now found himself torn. We fight for freedom, but at what cost? He confessed to Mira Patel during a rare quiet moment. She placed a hand on his exoskeleton arm. Freedom is never free, but if we don't fight, all will be lost. In the Council chambers far from Varaxis, Vrental seethed. The Council was fracturing under the relentless Solar Dominion push. Several member species openly questioned the war, calling for negotiations with Earth, but the High Speaker would hear none of it. They will burn us all, he warned. Only total victory will save us. On the burning world, a pivotal moment arrived. Human Commander Jax Marlowe led a risky mission into the capital's heavily fortified palace to capture Senator Kira Voss, a key political figure opposing the Council's warmongers. The operation was a success, but with a grim price. Marlowe's squad lost half its members in fierce close-quarters combat. Kira Voss, battered but defiant, glared at Marlowe in the makeshift prison cell. "You think this will break us?" She spat. "The Council is more than a government. It's our legacy." Marlowe shook his head. "Legacies change. We offer you a choice. Join us and build a future without tyranny, or stay with your masters and watch your world burn." The senator's silence was broken only by distant explosions outside. In that moment, the meaning of the Solar Dominion became clear. Not just conquest, but a reckoning. The galaxy's old order was collapsing, and humanity was the flame igniting the ashes. Back on Earth, news feeds flooded with footage from Varaxis Prime, burning cities, fierce battles, and the faces of refugees. Public opinion was divided. Some hailed the Solar Dominion as heroes, others feared the cost of endless war. President Dean stood before the world and spoke solemnly. War tests the soul of a people. We fight not to conquer, but to ensure no child is ever ruled by fear. But shadows gathered. In the ruins of a council outpost, a secret broadcast played. A cold voice warned. The Solar Dominion's flames will consume all. The council's reckoning is coming, and it will be merciless. As the camera pulled back, from the burning torch worlds, the stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. The war was no longer distant. It was here, consuming everything. The war outside burned bright, but the greatest battles often raged in silence. Inside the steel confines of the United Earth Council chamber, President Arya Dean sat alone, staring at the flickering hollow map of the galaxy. The torch worlds were aflame with rebellion, but the Council's shadow still loomed large. Even as humanity pushed outward, doubts whispered through Earth's own ranks. Her trusted advisor, Ambassador Jarek Holt, stepped forward, his face etched with concern. Madam President, intelligence suggests a mole within the Solar Dominion. Someone feeding information back to the Galactic Council. Arya's eyes narrowed. Betrayal in our midst? How deep does this go? Jarek shook his head. Too deep. To ignore. We must act carefully or risk losing everything. Meanwhile, far from Earth, aboard the Resolute, Commander Leah Santos paced the command deck, the weight of command heavy on her shoulders. Reports of strange council movements and sudden ambushes had raised alarm. It was as if someone within the Solar Dominion was undermining their efforts. Skiv Tor, the insectoid defector, approached her quietly. In my species, betrayal is a poison that spreads quickly. We must root it out before it kills us. Leah nodded grimly. Agreed, but we must tread carefully. A false accusation could shatter our fragile alliance. Deep within Earth's intelligence networks, cyber analysts worked tirelessly to track the source of the leaks. Lieutenant Commander Alina Cade, the cyber warfare specialist, was at the center of the hunt. Her eyes scanned streams of encrypted data, seeking the faintest anomaly. There, she whispered suddenly, pointing at a subtle pattern of data transmissions masked inside routine communications. Someone is relaying battle plans to the Council right under our noses. The revelation sent shockwaves through the Solar Dominion. Trust shattered. Paranoia spread like wildfire. Arya convened an emergency meeting of her closest advisors. We must find this traitor before the Council turns our victories into defeats. Jarek Holt's voice was steady but urgent. The mole could be anyone. Military, intelligence, even political. We need a counterintelligence operation. Arya's gaze hardened. Then we start by watching those closest to us. Back on Veraxis Prime, Skivtor gathered with Leah and Mira Patel. I have heard whispers among the rebels. Dissent, fear of infiltration. If the Council's poison is here, it will destroy us from within. Mira's jaw clenched. We cannot let paranoia fracture our coalition, but we must be vigilant. Leah looked at them both. We'll tighten security and increase vetting, but I want a team dedicated to uncovering the traitor. As the Solar Dominion intensified its hunt, the Council seized the opportunity. High Speaker Vrental ordered covert assassinations and sabotage aimed at destabilizing the rebellion's leadership. A series of mysterious accidents struck key human officers and rebel commanders. Each death sent ripples of fear and suspicion through the Solar Dominion. On Earth, the mole's identity finally surfaced. Colonel Marcus Dune, a decorated officer with access to sensitive operations. When confronted, he confessed under interrogation. Did it for survival, Dune said bitterly. The Council promised me power, safety. Humanity's war will destroy us all. Arya felt a pang of betrayal, but knew the cost of mercy was too high. Dune was sentenced to life imprisonment in the most secure facility Earth had. Yet the damage was done. Council forces ambushed a critical convoy transporting weapons to Veraxis Prime. The battle was brutal, and the Solar Dominion lost hundreds of fighters. In the aftermath, Leah Santos stared out at the stars, her resolve steelier than ever. We can't let this break us. The Council will try to divide us. But humanity's fire burns too bright. Skivtor stood beside her. Then, we fight. Not just their fleets, but their shadows. As the war deepened, the lines between friend and foe blurred. Trust became a rare commodity. The Solar Dominion's greatest battle was no longer in the stars. It was within. The war raged louder than ever in the void. But on Varaxis Prime, a new form of warfare was unfolding. A slow, relentless siege, not waged by armies, but by shadows. Skivtor stood on the bridge of the battered human transport Endurance, watching the smoke rise from the city below. The insurgents had held their ground for weeks, but Council forces tightened their grip, cutting off supply routes and isolating pockets of resistance. The Council is starving us, Mira Patel said grimly beside him. They believe if they choke our resources, the rebellion will wither. Skivtor's many eyes gleamed with resolve. They underestimate the human spirit, and that of their allies. Back on Earth, President Arya Dean faced mounting pressure. Reports from the front lines painted a grim picture. Humanitarian crises, starvation, and civilian casualties. Public opinion teetered between fierce support and growing wariness. In a rare broadcast, Arya addressed the world, her voice steady but solemn. We are in a test of endurance. This war will demand sacrifices, but it is a fight for the future of all free peoples. We will not yield. Meanwhile, Leah Santos coordinated desperate relief efforts in orbit, using every available ship to send aid through dangerous blockade corridors. Medical supplies, food, and water, every pod counts, Leah ordered, her eyes never leaving the tactical displays. We must keep the rebellion alive, her communications officer interrupted. Commander, the Council fleet is deploying a new class of siege drones, autonomous, nearly invisible in the void, capable of disabling supply ships before they reach the surface. Leah's jaw clenched. Then we find them first. Alina, can your team track these drones? Lieutenant Commander Alina Cade's fingers flew over her console. I'm running scans for unusual energy signatures. If they're stealth capable, it'll be like finding a needle in a haystack, but we'll find it. The siege drones struck swiftly and silently, disabling supply convoys with surgical precision. Each loss tightened the noose around Varaxis Prime. On the planet's surface, rebel forces fought fiercely to protect dwindling caches of resources. Guerrilla attacks on Council supply lines slowed the enemy, but hunger gnawed at the fighters' resolve. In the dim glow of an underground bunker, Skivtor and Mira Patel met with rebel leaders. We cannot endure this siege indefinitely, one rebel commander warned. Morale is fracturing. Skivtor's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. Then we must strike where it hurts, behind enemy lines. Mira nodded. A daring raid on the Council's drone production facility could turn the tide, Leah agreed. If we destroy their manufacturing capability, we give the rebels a fighting chance. I'll assign Jax Marlowe to lead the raid. The plan was risky, a small team infiltrating heavily fortified enemy territory under the cover of darkness. Success would mean supplies could reach the insurgents again. Failure would spell disaster. As the Endurance prepared to launch the raid team, Alina, Cade intercepted a troubling transmission. It's encrypted with Council High Command protocols, she reported. They're coordinating a massive assault, not just on Varaxis, but on multiple rebel-held systems. Arya's voice over the comm was grim. We've bought them time. Now we prepare for the storm. Under cover of a solar eclipse, Marlowe's strike team descended onto the Council facility, a sprawling complex nestled in a mountain range. The attack was swift and brutal, explosives ripping through the factory's defenses, but the Council had anticipated the strike. Reinforcements arrived, turning the raid into a desperate fight for survival. Marlowe's team was forced to split. Some withdrew with critical data and damaged equipment. Others fought to cover their retreat. Back on the Endurance, Leah received the distress call. Hold the line. Extraction in 5 minutes. The evacuation was chaotic. Marlowe's squad barely escaped as the facility erupted in fire and explosions. The raid had delayed drone production, but at a heavy cost. The Solar Dominion's forces on Varaxis were stretched thin, morale shaken, but the Council's impending assault threatened to crush the rebellion. In the quiet aftermath, Leah and Skivtor convened with President Dean over secure holographic link. "We slowed them," Leah reported. "But the Council's response will be overwhelming." Arya's face was resolute. "Then we prepare for a battle that will decide the fate of this war. The silent siege ends with a storm. As the stars shimmered cold and indifferent, the Solar Dominion steeled itself for the coming tempest. The war had evolved from open battle to a silent siege, but soon the skies would roar again. The distant rumble of warships echoed through the void, a terrifying symphony heralding the coming storm. On the bridge of the Resolute, Commander Leah Santos stood firm, eyes locked on the holodisplay showing the swelling Council fleet approaching. Varaxis Prime. The enemy's numbers dwarfed theirs. Thousands of warships bristling with weapons and armed with the latest siege drones, poised to crush the rebellion once and for all. "Admiral," Leah said, voice steady despite the tension, "they're launching a full-scale assault. This is the battle that will decide everything." Admiral Harrow, grizzled and battle-worn, nodded grimly. "Then we make our stand here, no retreat." Below, the deck, Lieutenant Commander Alina Cade's fingers danced across her console, hacking into Council communications to intercept fleet orders. "They're coordinating strikes on every rebel stronghold simultaneously," she reported. "They intend to obliterate the insurgency before Earth can reinforce." Skivtor, standing nearby, clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. "The Council's desperation blinds them. They will waste their strength in a sprawling war." Leah's eyes narrowed. "Then we use that to our advantage." The plan was audacious. Rather than meet the Council fleet head-on, the Solar Dominion would split their forces, using hit-and-run tactics to fracture the enemy's cohesion. Jax Marlowe, battle-hardened and relentless, led a fleet of fast corvettes through asteroid fields and debris, launching surprise attacks on Council supply lines. Each hit slowed the enemy advance and stretched their resources thin. On the surface of Varaxis Prime, rebel forces fortified their positions, bracing for the coming ground invasion. Civilians, scarred by months of siege and hardship, helped dig trenches, build barricades, and tend to the wounded. Skivtor walked among them, offering words of encouragement despite his alien form. "This world fights not just for itself, but for the freedom of all. We are the spark that will ignite the galaxy." The first shots of the battle blazed across Varaxis's skies. Council warships unleashed torrents of plasma, while human and rebel fighters responded with fierce determination. Explosions rocked the planet and starships alike. Leah coordinated the defense, directing ships to intercept the most dangerous threats, while Alina jammed enemy sensors and hacked drone swarms mid-flight. But the Council's superweapon, hidden somewhere deep in their fleet, cast a dark shadow over the conflict. Alina's scans revealed energy surges consistent with its activation sequence. "We don't have much time," she warned. "If they fire it, this war ends in annihilation." In the heart of the battle, Jax Marlowe's fleet was ambushed near a cluster of gas giants. Outnumbered and outgunned, Marlowe called for backup. Leah answered, dispatching reinforcements through a daring route along the gas cloud's turbulent edges. The ensuing space dogfight was brutal. Ships burned, exploded, and collided in a deadly ballet of fire and metal. Marlowe's corvette was hit, shields failing, as the ship began to plummet. Toward a gas giant, Marlowe gritted his teeth. "Not today," he muttered, activating an emergency flare that blinded pursuing fighters long enough for his crew to regroup. Meanwhile, deep within the Council fleet, High Speaker Vrental stood before the activation chamber of the superweapon. His hand hovered over the control panel, hesitating. "We have lost control of the galaxy," he admitted quietly to his closest advisors. "This weapon is our last chance." A younger officer pressed him. "We can end this war now, or watch our empire collapse." Vrental's eyes darkened. "We end it, but at a terrible cost." Back on the Resolute, Leah received an urgent alert. "Superweapon charging," Alina announced. "Full power in minutes." "Then we have one shot," Leah said. We have to get to the core and disable it. A strike team assembled quickly. Led by Skivtor and Jax Marlowe, they boarded a captured Council cruiser and made their way to the heart of the fleet. The corridors were a maze of cold metal and flickering lights. Resistance was fierce. Automated defenses, elite guards, and lethal traps slowed their progress. In the final chamber, the team confronted the superweapons control core, a massive glowing device pulsating with raw energy. Skivtor planted explosives while Marlowe and his squad held off waves of defenders. Alina's voice crackled in their comms. Explosives set, detonating in 5, 4, 3. The explosion rocked the cruiser, tearing through the fleet's center. The superweapons charging sequence abruptly stopped, its energy collapsing inward. Back on the Resolute, cheers erupted. The immediate threat was neutralized, but Leah knew the war was far from over. The battle had been a reckoning, a storm that tested every ounce of humanity's resolve, and as the smoke cleared, the Solar Dominion stood taller, their fire unextinguished. Thedi. Silence after the storm was deafening. Varax's prime skies were scarred with smoldering wreckage, but the Solar Dominion had survived. The Council fleet, crippled and demoralized, limped away into the void, its grip on the galaxy slipping. On the Resolute's bridge, Commander Leah Santos exhaled deeply. We've won a battle, not the war. President Aria Dane's image flickered into the holocom. Her face was weary but resolute. This war has changed everything. The Council's empire is fractured, but their hatred remains. We must be ready for what comes next. On the ground, Skivtor moved through the battered rebel encampment, watching children play among the ruins. The fight had cost them dearly, but hope was rekindling. Mira Patel approached him, her expression tired yet proud. The torch worlds will burn brighter now. The galaxy will remember humanity, not as conquerors, but as liberators. Skivtor's mandibles clicked softly. Then let this be our legacy, freedom forged in fire. Yet victory bore a bitter edge. Colonel Marcus Dune's betrayal had shaken the Solar Dominion to its core. Security was tighter, suspicion lingered, and trust was harder won. On Earth, debates raged over the future. Some called for peace talks, others for relentless pursuit of the Council's remnants. Aria's final address to the United Earth Council was clear. We fight not for vengeance, but for a future where no species cowers beneath tyranny. We will rebuild, together. But even as the galaxy began to heal, shadows lingered. In a hidden Council outpost, High Speaker Vrental, wounded and exiled, watched the stars with cold fury. They may have won this battle, he vowed, but the war for the galaxy's soul is far from over. The Solar Dominion, forged in the crucible of war, stood as a beacon, a fierce reminder that humanity would not be broken. And from the ashes, new alliances, new hope, and new challenges would rise. The galaxy's future was uncertain, but one truth remained unshaken. Humanity burns brightest when the night is darkest.